basically, I came up with this idea. I really wanted to write a series about a family, and I didn't want them to be in law enforcement because I had my Quinn and Costa series, which are FBI agents. So I wanted to do something, um, a little different. So I decided, oh, a family of private investigators might be fun. And I decided to set it here in Arizona. I relocated to Arizona in 2019 and decided, oh, I'm going to write this series, set it here so I can go to places, I can research things, I could go to restaurants and try the food, and be able to like really immerse myself in this. So, Into the Fire is the prequel, and it's basically how Margot decided to become a private investigator. It's about her very first case. She's working. She had just left the military. She was in the army for 6 years. She's working as a bartender. She doesn't quite know what she wants to do, and a deputy district attorney comes to her and says, look, this guy has confessed to a crime I don't think he committed. I already went to my boss and told my boss I think he's lying, but it's a slam dunk, and they're not going to investigate it. He confessed. What can I do? So Margot starts looking into it to figure out, okay, what's going on? Why would a 19-year-old confess to a robbery murder he may not have committed? Uh, so that was the setup, and that was a lot of fun. It was a prequel, so that happened 8 years before the first book, because I wanted to say, okay, this is how Margot got started, kind of introduce the characters of her family. Then we fast forward 8 years to the first book, and it's You'll Never Find Me. And that is when we find out that Margot is estranged from her family. Her father was arrested and pled guilty to a murder that she is positive he did not commit. And her mother, who used to be a prosecutor, would not look into it, said, no, he confessed. We're going to support him in his decision. And so Margot left the family business. She said, I'm not doing this with you. I'm just done. It's hard, though, because they have a huge Irish Mexican family. And so she's constantly seeing her mother around, and she's still friends with her siblings, although they're estranged. So at the beginning of the book, two cases, one that Margot has and one that the family has, kind of collide, and they end up having to work together in order to solve it. Um, and that was fun because I got them back working together in an organic way, where Margot and her mother now have a truce that the mom will not stop her from investigating, but Margot won't use Angel Heart resources to investigate. I'm just expanding their family, and the family dynamic, and how they're working together. So we really get to know Margot the most, and then we touch upon Jack, her brother, and Tess, her sister. In There's a novella between You'll Never Find Me and Don't Say a Word, where it's more of Jack's story. So we learn a little bit more about Jack. And I bring in a main character from the first book, Logan Monroe, who is a multimillionaire entrepreneur in Scottsdale. And Jack is hired to protect his sister, who had a break in. Um, so I was able to bring that back. And then when I get to the third book, we're getting deeper into all of the siblings. So we learn more. Obviously, Jack and Margot kind of lead the family business, but we learn more about Tess, because Tess and Margot were extremely close until Margot became estranged from the family. And so they're now navigating this sisterhood that they used to have and trying to regain their relationship. And then we have the youngest sister, Louisa, who is in college after spending 6 years in the Marines, and she's a computer expert. She did like computer security for the Marines that she can't talk about, because then I don't have to explain how she knows what she knows, because I'm not a computer expert. And we get to bring Louisa in, so she gets to do some more of the investigative work for Don't Say a Word. And so I think what I like the most is I'm layering in more depth to the family, to their relationship, to how they work together, and also because they are family, they go like this sometimes. But in the end, they forgive each other and love each other no matter what differences that they have. And I think that's what I really wanted to explore as the subplot of the story, against the backdrop of whatever crime they're investigating. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. Jack used to be a cop. He's now a private investigator, and he tends to look at things from a law enforcement perspective, and he's always going to give law enforcement the benefit of the doubt. But he also has a lot of contacts, so that helps to get information. Margot is absolutely goes with her gut. She is really good at kind of you know, weeding through things and following the path of, wherever the evidence leads. She is never going to be, she doesn't think what's going on. She's only going to believe what she sees. So if she finds the evidence, then that's going to take her down another path. She's not going to say, oh, well, I feel that this guy's innocent or I feel that he's guilty. No, she's really going to focus on um, what's in front of her. And then Tess, their sister, is um, she is really good with research. She's not really a field person, but she used to be a legal, she passed the bar. She actually could be a lawyer if she wanted, but she decided she didn't like it. And she likes doing all of the digging around in the archives, trying to find out the juicy details and all the information that you can find about people online. So, like when you go through social media, she is really good at digging down in there and finding who your friends are and who your associates are. And so, that skill set, I think they all really work well together. I didn't really plan it that way. It just kind of evolved as I was writing the series, how the roles, what their roles ended up being. So my daughter is a Phoenix PD officer. So I have a lot of respect for cops. And what I did here is because I didn't want the cops to just be the bad guys. There's an officer, Josie Morales, who is Margot's cousin and her best friend. They grew up together. They're like close in age. They went to school together. Um, they were very close friends. And Josie is the first cop, the responding officer to the dead body call. So I have Josie, who thinks one thing, and the detectives come in, and the detectives say, "Well, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. It looks like an overdose death. All the signs are there. He had, fentanyl in his pocket. The autopsy showed that he died of an overdose. He died of an overdose." And they're going to assume because he was not known to be a drug user that it was an accident. And they close the case. Now, I can understand why they do that. They are dealing with a lot of overdose deaths in Phoenix. And so the detective comes in, they're not going to make more work. If they don't see anything at the scene that suggests foul play, they're just going to close the case. So I was probably a little bit more, how shall we say, nicer to the officer side of the equation than the detective side of the equation. But I think it just shows, first of all, Phoenix is understaffed. I do address that in both of the books. This is a fact. Per capita, Houston and Philadelphia, which are the fourth and sixth largest cities in the country, Phoenix is the fifth, have more cops per capita than Phoenix. So Phoenix is grossly understaffed. And I kind of address that here when you have a detective that is overwhelmed with multiple cases and you know, they're not going to go over and above when they don't have anything to go on. But she also wasn't really a nice cop. She probably should retire. Well, the most important thing is the character. I want to create a character that I haven't created before. So they'll all be unique in their own way. I think you could come up with great plot ideas or, oh, this is good, or this hasn't been done recently. Everything's been done, as you well know. So what is unique is characters. We have billions of people on the planet and they're all different. So you want to come up with some character that people, for me at least, they could be flawed. They could have, some bad habits, but they have to be at their core likable where your readers can want them to succeed. So when I come up with I'm really focusing on the character more than the plot. So the Quinn and Costa series, I wanted to write about a team of FBI agents, the best of the best, that went to small and rural areas in order to solve cases that maybe local law enforcement couldn't handle. And out of that, kind of plot. I said, well, who would populate this team? What kind of people do I need? Kara wasn't supposed to be a regular. She was only going to be in the first book, and Matt was going to kind of lead the team. But I just fell in love with her, and I said, "Wow, I need to find a way to keep her on because she's a Los Angeles police officer or a detective." So I had to find a plausible way to keep her on the team at the end of the book, which is why I had the threat on her life. And so she went on loan to the FBI, which it has happened. It's not common, but it is actually real that local law enforcement will attach onto task force of the FBI for certain cases, and it can be a long time. So I took things that really happened and just tweaked it so she could be on there indefinitely. I'm actually currently writing the third book right now, where um, the premise of the story is a nurse who used to work with her dad contacts Margot with and says, something weird happened at work. They worked at the VA, and I think I never thought Cooper was guilty of murder. Margot's dad is in prison for murder. But he confessed, so he must be guilty. But then I saw this weird thing and thought you should know. So Margot is going to meet with her, and the nurse ends up dead. So now Margot says, okay, I'm going to my dad. He is going to tell me exactly what's going on. And he doesn't. But it kind of opens this whole can of worms as Margot starts investigating what happened to the nurse. It opens this huge can of worms for everybody in her family. And I'm not done writing it, so I have no idea how it's going to exactly turn out, but I'm actually really excited. It's been every scene I'm starting, I'm like, oh, what's going to happen now? This is so exciting because I don't plot.